Welcome to the Counselling Tutor Podcast, the must-listen-to podcast for students of counselling and psychotherapy. Here are your hosts, Rory Lees-Oakes and Ken Kelly.
Hello and welcome to episode 77 of the Counselling Tutor Podcast with me, Rory Lees-Oakes. And with me is always the person who's in my phenomenological field, Mr. Ken Kelly. How are you, Ken?
I'm very well. Thank you very much for asking, Rory. It's great to be here. Episode 77. We're getting on in the UK academic year now, heading towards those final portfolios that might need to be submitted or those final assignments that need to be boxed off before year end. But a great episode for you today, starting off looking at that topic: am I too old to go back to study and study counselling? So age related to counselling study. In Practice Matters, we're going to be looking at such an important topic that Rory's bringing today, and that's working within your competence. Give us a bit of a flavour for that one, Rory.
Well, I mean, I guess as a private practitioner nowadays, it's about being honest about my abilities to work with clients and how we work that out, how we negotiate with ourselves what work we can do and what work we may have to refer on.
Like it. Keys very much into referrals there. And then looking at the fitness to practice assignment. So any counsellor going into a placement within the United Kingdom needs to have a fitness to practice letter that is signed off by the tutor. And there are a number of hoops that need to be gone through, jumped over to get that fitness to practice. And we're going to be examining what that looks like. Loads of discussion about that, specifically this time of year as people are considering new placements. So let's kick off episode 77, and we're looking at age related to study. Am I too old, Rory? What do you think?
Well, I think it's interesting, really, because this comes up in the Facebook a lot. It really does come up in the Facebook feed a lot. And I mean, I was 41, I think, when I went back to school, and I will share with the listener, I didn't have any qualifications worth taking to a job interview.
Yeah.
me and school, we didn't get on too well. So I started in my middle years, if you like. And my view is you're never too old to learn. One of the things I did take away from school was I was told by, I think it was a chemistry teacher, that you're never too old to learn. You're learning every day until you die, and then you're learning about that. And that kind of stuck with me existentially through the years. And it's true. It's one of the wisest things my teachers ever said to me. I can tell you that.
I like it, and it's a good topic, and you're 100% right, Rory. It comes up again and again, and it's interesting having taught alongside you, Rory, for a few years. It's interesting to look at the age variance within people that present for counselling training. And it does vary. And I think that is fantastic because we've had the similar topic, and we've discussed it only in a recent podcast of, am I too young to study? Will that be counted against me when I'm sitting in a counselling room and maybe somebody that is more senior in years to me sits opposite me? So age, does it play a part? And I think it's about the person themselves, what calls them into counselling, because counselling, I guess, in some way is a calling. It doesn't seem to be, and maybe this is just my frame of reference, a regular progression that I will go to school saying, oh, I want to leave and become a counsellor, go to college, go to university, study counselling and go straight into counselling. I'm not saying people don't take that route. I'm sure many do, but it doesn't seem to be the more typical route. The more typical route is going out into life, living life, and maybe coming upon some kind of hardship and finding your way through that, and then finding that you want to give something back. Certainly, I, as you, Rory, at school is a chapter of my life I've kind of closed off and bound up and put sellotape around it, and I don't read it anymore. I'm dyslexic. At school, I was told how lazy I was, and I really, really tried, and no matter how hard I tried, I could not do what the other children could do. I could not do my times tables. I could not learn the spelling of those words. So I was constantly looking at tests that I got back with red rings around saying that I need to try harder, and boy, was I trying. So you know what I did, Rory? I actually stopped trying because the harder I tried, there was no movement in that. So I left school thinking that I was not an academic, and it was it was many years later that I heard a radio interview with someone who had gone into counselling, and I thought, I would love to do that, and I thought, but I can't because I'm not an academic. But on the off chance, I wondered what the entrance qualifications might be, and I drove my car that very day as I was out repping for the company I was working with to Warrington Collegiate, and I went inside and said, hey, do you offer counselling courses? And they spoke about the introduction to counselling, and I asked what the entry requirements were, and they said that you pay your credit card fee now. So I paid it and I joined up, and I was very surprised when I entered the course to find that people were kind of my age.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, when I was in training, I thought at 40 I might be the oldest there, and I was actually the youngest.
Yeah.
Not the youngest, I have to say, but I was the youngest because someone had just retired. And there's quite a few people older than me, and I trained a lot of counsellors to practice level, to qualification, and there is a wide variety of ages. So if you're an older person, as my grandfather used to say, a senior citizen, which I think is a lovely phrase.
Like it.
Why not? If you've got some time and you can afford it, which is crucially now becoming more of a thing, and you're really passionate about it, there's no barrier. Age isn't a barrier to learning, so learn away, I would say.
And similarly, I would say the academic side is not a barrier either. That's definitely testament to my journey in going in, because what I did find in my counselling training is that I am academic. I now have an academic textbook that I was able to bring to market, but that was about finding the belief within myself, being seen as more than my dyslexia, with tutors working to within my learning styles. And counselling is about a way of being. It's about personal qualities. It's about examining self. It's about having a true care for others. There is theory and there is written work, but you should get in a good learning environment the support around that. So if you feel that you may be not an academic, or it's many decades since you maybe last sat in a classroom and done any academic work, don't let that be a barrier to you, because the support is there.
Absolutely. And if you're interested, that's what will carry you through. If you've got a passion for it, it's your muse, it's something that's really meaningful to you, then that's, I think, is about 90% of it, to be honest. If you can do that, definitely. Yeah, so age, absolutely no barrier. And why not? Why not? We need more people in the helping profession. Mental health, certainly in the UK, isn't getting any better from everything I read and everything I'm told. So we need more professionals going out there helping people, and trying to make the world a better place. That's what I would say.
I like it. And if you would like to join this conversation, because it is a conversation, it's a conversation that happened and was started on our Facebook group, then pop into our Facebook group, and you can find that by going onto Facebook and just typing in Counselling Tutor. We're right at the top. You just come through to our group, we will let you in and come and join thousands and thousands of like-minded individuals from all around the world, students of counselling, psychotherapy. We've got tutors in there, and we've got practicing therapists who kind of hang out because of the richness of the conversations. Come and join in, and a big thank you going out to our moderation team who keep it spam-free, so you get in there and you can actually have those conversations without seeing reams and reams and reams of adverts. So moving on, practice matters. That's important, isn't it? Because practice does matter, and each week Rory shares just a little gem with us on practice, related to being in practice, and we're talking today about working within your competence.
Yeah, it links on to a couple of things, really: assessment and referral, the two corner bedstones of counselling practice. And I'm going to be speaking about, really how you view the material that a client might bring. You might get a referral, and also what informs your CPD. So if you're a qualified prac or someone coming to the end of your qualification, I'm going to be speaking a little bit about really how to structure your continuing professional development around the presentations you're getting. So it's a must listen to, I think.
Practice matters.
Practice matters.
One of the reasons I've chose working within your competence for Practice Matters is I was reminded just this week of what can happen or what may happen if you don't work within your competence. I've had 3 phone calls from prospective clients who've asked me to work with them, and when we've talked a little bit about the difficulties that they wanted to look at, it turned out that I wasn't qualified or competent to work with them. One wanted a psychiatric report written, and I'm not a psychiatrist, and 2 others wanted couples counselling, and I'm not trained in that, and it's not an area professionally that I'm interested in. So I politely referred them on, as Ken talked about, made an ethical referral, and they went on, hopefully, to find people who were competent with the issues that they wanted to discuss and work through. But it does ask a bigger question of us. How do we know we work within our competence? And also, how do you know if you're a student? Because when you first meet clients, with all due respect, everything is going to be new, and it's not unusual for students to feel what's called feelings of incompetence, or FOIs, as they're sometimes called. Well, the first thing is that as a student, you should be well supported. That support comes from your supervisor, it comes from your placement, and it comes from your tutor. So those are the 3 areas where you should be getting really good support from, and also, if needs be, your ethical body. But let's talk about the placement first. All good placements should have a robust referral system in place. So when a client appears or presents at the agency, what should happen is that they should be assessed by a qualified, experienced therapist and then allocated to a counsellor. And that allocation should, if it's done correctly, be on what the presenting issue is, what the risk element is to the client in terms of their own personal risk, and also the modality of therapy. So, for instance, a client who is maybe contemplating suicide wouldn't usually be referred to a brand new counsellor. That would just be too much for someone who's just started. Nor would you refer someone who wanted to have some work around fear of flying. You wouldn't refer those to a person-centred therapist, because if all they wanted to work on was the fear of flying, then possibly CBT would be a better modality, a better fit for them. And also complex clients who may have a lot going on for them may need a more experienced therapist. So working within your competence as a novice therapist, well, you should be taken care of initially by the filtering of your agency. And you can't underestimate why that's important. And it's one of the reasons why a lot of awarding bodies, universities, and ethical bodies really say you, as a student therapist, you should be working with an agency with a qualified counsellor who's doing the assessments and the referrals. And I was talking just the other day to Bob Cook from the Manchester Institute for Psychotherapy. He still does all the referrals for his practice. So anybody who comes to him, he makes the referrals and will allocate and match up a therapist to a client. Really good practice, and really offering the best possible service. So what else can we do to be aware of our own competence? Well, the first thing is, I would say, is gaining a good supervisor. Having a good supervisor will be the making of your practice and your professional formation. A good supervisor will be experienced, will have a wide range of training, and also a wide experience of different client presentations. Really super important, because part of supervision is the formative part, where they will teach you or give you observations on working with certain client presentations. The other thing is training, and I'm going to use the word as in CPD. I know when I taught counselling, a lot of my students would do bereavement training, sometimes as part of the placement, sometimes as an external module, and they would also do maybe trauma training in trauma to get a better understanding of it. And the reason for that is that the curriculums of a lot of awarding bodies are very prescriptive, and they would class that kind of training as external to the course. So we would recommend that if people wanted to do a little bit of extra CPD, all learning's good. why not go and do that and find out a little bit more, can be really useful, even if you're only practicing, and I say only, in person-centered therapy. Just to have a better understanding of the client's frame of reference is really useful. What else can we do to be sure we're working within our competence? Well, I would say limits of confidentiality. Part of working for an organisation, any organisation, is to link together the policies and procedures of the organisation in terms of confidentiality, and also the ethical expectations within whichever ethical framework you work under. So it could be the BACP, the UKCP, or the National Counselling Society. All of them have ethical frameworks. All of them have expectations in terms of how you work ethically with clients. But why do we need to be competent and confident about that? Well, there are some organisations and there are some counselling organisations which have specific limits to confidentiality. I was speaking the other day to someone who was working or going to be doing a placement with the youth offending team. They have guidance by the Home Office about limits of confidentiality. If you work in a rehabilitation unit for people who are coming off alcohol and drugs, there may be a specific limits to confidentiality there. One of those will be almost certainly, if someone uses street drugs, you'd have to break confidentiality. The reason for that is, of course, that if someone's using street drugs and they're getting a prescription for medication to help manage cravings and withdrawal, using both of those together could make them ill. In some cases, could kill them. So that will be a limit of confidentiality. The final thing about working within your competence is being aware of your own process. Some of the time we work with clients and we realise that we've got transference, my old friend, where you are working with a client and they remind you of someone in your past. And, before you know it, it's very possible, instead of responding to the client as a new person that you've got no history with, you may be responding to them as you would that person in the past. And that's sometimes called counter-transference. So, if you've had someone who you've not got on with, a parent, for instance, and all of a sudden you have a client who reminds you of your parent, it may be that the responses you give are not coming from the here and now, but are coming from the past. You're responding to that person in the past, not to your client. You need to be aware of that. That should be picked up in supervision. And usually people can pick it up themselves because they feel there's an incongruence within them. And finally, and this is a real heartfelt message to anyone who is training, ask for support. If you feel that you're working outside your competence, first of all, that's not unusual. In the Means and Thorn book, Person-Centered Counselling and Action, they have a whole section on what's called FOI, feelings of incompetence. People working outside their comfort zone, so that's not unusual. And secondly, do ask for help, do ask for support. Experienced therapists really need to take heed of that. It's okay to ask for help. It's not any sense that you're doing anything wrong or that you're not competent. It's just that you need a collaboration to help you get some sense of where you are and where you are in the client's work. And all good therapists do that. And in fact, the best therapists do that on a consistent basis because they're checking out their perceptions. And it might be worth remembering what Rogers said about how we look at our experience. It needs to be checked in new and primary ways. And you can't get better than taking advice or taking an observation, maybe from your supervisor, your tutor, or even your peers. So I hope that helps you with working within your competence.
Thank you as always, Rory. Really important stuff there. Practice matters I really like. I know we did theory with Rory in season 3 and we studied the theories that matter when we're writing our assignments. But practice matters is what happens in the trenches. It's what happens in that counselling room, and making referrals and being able to monitor your own competence when a client is presenting. So important. Go and grab the handout. How do you get the handout? Well, you go to our website. It's counsellingtutor.com. Click on the podcast tab. They're all there. all of them that we've done, all the past, so you can make your way through those. But today's episode is 77. Click on 77. All the show notes are there, including links to external reading on the topics we've discussed today, and you can download Rory's super duper handout on working within your competence right there from within the page. And of course, if you are a member of our paid for resource, which is the Counselling Study Resource, or the CSR, then the handouts vault already contains that handout. It's been added for you. You can log in and access that without having to download it. And of course, if you're wondering what is the CSR, how do I join the CSR, more information on that at the end of today's episode. But we're moving on, and we're looking at fitness to practice. Fitness to practice is, are you fit to go into placement, sit with the client, and be able to handle the material that they bring? And of course, tutors within the colleges need to assess your fitness to be able to say, yes, okay, go into that practice. And you need to go through a number of processes to be able to do that. Rory, can you speak us through the different processes one might face?
Yes, well, I think it's a great testament to how counsellors and tutors specifically are viewed by our colleagues who run charitable institutions or even the NHS, because they ask us as a tutor to send a letter of comfort to them, to say that the person we're sending to them, or I used to send to them, is capable of working therapeutically, at least at the level they're training at, with clients. And a fitness to practice letter is effectively a letter that you give to your placement to give them the comfort that they're taking on someone who's competent. And to get that fitness to practice letter, as you rightly say, Ken, students have to jump through hoops. And one of those hoops really is about observation of skills. We don't expect, or I didn't expect, students who are going into the first placement to be mature, seasoned therapists. Everybody has to start somewhere. But what we did expect was a minimum standard that students could abide to. So an understanding of confidentiality, an understanding of the law to some extent. I seem to remember doing the law quiz quite often. And also the ability to use counselling skills appropriately. And that was usually observed. It was usually myself and another tutor. We'd observe them, and then we would give them feedback. And not everybody got a fitness to practice letter off the bat. Some were said, look, you're not going to have to go away and have a think about your skills. They were given feedback, and then they would come back and try again. And the key thing about the fitness to practice letter, it is a letter that can be terminated. So once that letter is issued, it's only live as long as the student is working within the confines, if you like, of the course. If somebody goes native or decides that they're going to do something else or give advice, or many years ago I did have someone who was studying, or thought they were studying what they called Jungarian therapy. I had to point out it's Jungian. When we investigated it, it was they got a book called Teach Yourself Jungian Therapy. Not really good if you have a person-centered course, so regretfully we had to take some action there. But yeah, it is about making sure that the placement gets a person who's competent, but really it's about making sure clients get the best service, because everything we do is in service of the client, Ken.
100%. And the fitness to practice also requires that you evidence your membership to your ethical body. So here in the UK, generally in colleges, that would be the BACP student division, and you would need to show that you have that card, and you need to evidence as you submit for that card that you are on a course and that you meet the criteria. There is disclosure if there are any past issues that may come up in the future that you need to make while getting that membership. And you would also need to hold insurance to be able to go into practice. And all of this will be looked at when it comes to that fitness to practice. But I do know, and I see this on our Facebook group, that the fitness to practice observed skills brings up a lot of anxiety. So either that would be done in observation, where, as Rory described, the tutor might look and see what it is you're doing, but it can also be done via submitted tapes, where the tapes would be listened to kind of gauge where you're at, how you're using the skills, how you're reflecting back, and as Rory said, that you're meeting those minimum requirements to go into practice, that you will go out and do no harm, I think is a good way of putting that. You're not going to kind of give advice and stop practicing Hungarian.
Yes, indeed. And also make it, part of the fitness to practice letter is the part in the ethical framework that says that people exercise self-care. I think that that's really important. It's a holistic thing. It's about clients. Yes, it's about making sure that tutors send out competent people into the world, but it's also about making sure that if a student is having a really difficult time and they're struggling and they're not maybe accepting observation from the tutor, maybe come out of practice for a little bit and get yourself together, then it is ultimately a sanction where you can phone up a placement and say, I'm afraid we've had to revoke the fitness to practice letter. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, but it's all part of tutors overseeing good practice, and I think it's essential.
Yeah, and I guess it just points to that there is a triangular contract in place when you go into placement, certainly here in the UK, where the triangle is the placement itself. They're going to have their policies, procedures within the organisation. You then have the college or the learning institution or the university who issued that fitness to practice. They are part of that triangulation. And also in a good course, you will be having professional discussion where you may be taking elements of practice, discussing that with peers in a supervisor in a tutor supervised environment, I might say, not just chatting about your client material. And you have, of course, on the other side of that triangle, your supervisor who will monitor your clinical practice and who will also be working with your learning institution and be overseeing your work within your organization. So there are shareholders, I guess, in your journey when you are in placement. So a couple of references or links that I might share with you are, one is we have a 3-step skills blueprint. It's an article I wrote some time ago, and it's about when you have to kind of do a skills session and you're either being watched or taped. So I'll put a link in there, so that might be helpful for you. It's about how the anxiety can come up and how you might work with that within that moment, because it can be very nerve-wracking. I've certainly spoke to supervisees who have mentioned that, when they do their regular skills sessions, simulated skills sessions, they're fine. But as soon as a tutor is there, they stutter, they stammer, they can't get the words out, they don't seem to be able to get it right. So that skills blueprint may be useful for you. And then another article that we have on our site, which is very popular, and I'll put a link into today's show notes, is First Counselling Session. It's about that first time that you are face-to-face with a client. It's about how you prepare, what's going on in you. It's a really informed article, and that may be useful for you if you are in the process of planning going into your placement, because it's that time of year. We're hitting the nail at the time it needs hitting, Rory. I don't know if that's a saying. I think I'm making that up by taking a few sayings and patching them together here.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Well, I think you've coined a new phrase, Ken. And I was just kind of, when you were talking now, I was just drifting off a little bit, because I remember one of the things about our fit when I taught at Warrington Collegiate, one of the things we did at Fitness to Practice was when someone got their fitness to practice letter. So they do the skills one week, we'd tell them if they'd passed, and then the next week they'd have their letter. And we used to have a mini graduation.
Yes.
People used to come to the front and get the letter, and because it was a rite of passage, it was a marker to say, look, this is important stuff here, and you've passed and you're off into the world. And it showed the other people in the group there was something to aspire to, that it was a profession they're in. It was a serious endeavour they're undertaking.
Agreed. And it's something to celebrate. When you get your fitness to practice, it's that yes moment. as you continue your learning. And it's interesting when, on so many courses, you're going to be, you've still got a year of study left when you get that fitness to practice, at least a year of study left. But you're going to be, the study changes slightly. You're in practice, you're in placement, and it moves to your clients teaching you so much. It's such an enriching time. It's where the rubber meets the road, Rory.
Oh, what a wonderful phrase it is! It's the reality of it, and fitness to practice letters. I think it's something to be celebrated, really, because it's really a landmark in a counselling journey. Once you have that letter, you're effectively been told that your tutor has confidence in you to go out and sit in front of a client. Big step to be given that confidence from your tutor, because your tutor will be someone more experienced and someone who is really making sure, or should be making sure, that you are on the way to becoming qualified practitioner.
Episode 77, Counselling Tutor Podcast. We started off looking at age related to the counselling study journey. In Practice Matters, Rory examined working within your competence and touched on referrals. Fitness to practice assessments closing us off today. Great episode. Thanks for being here.
It is a great episode. And as always, stay grounded and stay safe.
Take care. If you enjoy the topics and handouts here on the Counselling Tutor Podcast, then you will love the Counselling Study Resource. CSR was built by myself, Ken, and Rory Lees-Oakes to give you the support you need during your counselling studies. So get access to the world's most comprehensive collection of resources aimed at supporting you in your journey to become a counsellor. Take the stress out of your studies by visiting counsellingtutor.com/CSR. That's counsellingtutor.com/CSR.
Thank you for listening to the Counselling Tutor Podcast. Find the show notes for this episode on our website at www.counsellingtutor.com.